Good morning, everybody, and you're all very welcome to this information session for applicants to the EU Just Transition Fund Bioeconomy Demonstration Initiative second call. So for anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Carl Walsh. I'm the head of the Research, Bioeconomy and Codex unit in the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. And I'm joined today by Patrick Barrett and Bernie Rowe. Bernie Rowe is the Assistant Director of the Eastern and Midlands Regional Assembly, and they're the Managing Authority for the EU JTF here. And Patrick, many of you will know, Patrick manages the bioeconomy area within my division. So you're all very welcome. The agenda for today, we'll be here for about an hour and a half, so I'm going to give some opening remarks and to kind of set the scene for the call. And then Bernie will speak briefly on where this bioeconomy demonstration initiative fits in the overall funding programme. And then Patrick will go through the details of the call itself. So that'll take a little bit of time, but I think it's worth going through that step by step. And then we have time allocated for questions at the end. On this GoToWebinar platform, if you're not familiar with it, the way you put your questions to us is you'll see a questions tab there on your screen, and you type your questions in there. So you can type your questions in at any time, but it might be best to wait until Bernie and Patrick have gone through their presentations in case your question actually ends up being answered through their presentations. So that's how we're going to manage it. Any questions, I should say, any questions that we're not able to answer on the webinar today, we will attempt to answer them in an updated frequently asked questions document that we will release by the end of this week. So we'll have the questions that we can't answer today, and we'll also include the most commonly asked questions in that document, and we'll publish that before the end of the week. So moving on then to the policy context. So 7 years ago, the first national policy statement was published on the bioeconomy, and this indicated an intention here in Ireland to develop a bioeconomy that would address climate action, sustainable development and rural economic growth. We're now at a stage where the bioeconomy is very much becoming mainstream. So at the EU level, a couple of things to point to here. First of all, when the new Commission was formed some months ago, political guidelines were issued from the President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, to each of the commissioners. And in her letter to the Commissioner for the Environment, she included bioeconomy as a driver of innovation and competitiveness. So that's specifically in the mandate for that commissioner. Secondly, then, in the strategic dialogue on the future of EU agriculture, many of you will be familiar with that, I'm sure. It also, bioeconomy also appears quite strongly there. And then that led on to the publication of the vision for agriculture and food. And the vision points to the opportunities for agri-food in the bioeconomy and reducing critical dependencies. Critical dependencies could be things like imports of protein or indeed fertilizers. In particular, it points to the acceleration of commercialization of bio-based products and services and scaling breakthrough technologies. And that's a key element of what we're trying to do in the Bioeconomy Demonstration Initiative. And it also points to the fact that pursuing this type of a bioeconomy is very beneficial for primary producers, whether farmers, fishers or foresters, because in the case of farmers, for example, it really plays an important role in diversifying income streams and systems. It also offers the potential to valorize biomass that farmers produce or indeed other residues from farming systems. A key EU initiative now is the updating of the EU bioeconomy strategy. Many of you, of course, are likely to be familiar with this because a public consultation has taken place that closed last Friday, I think. So the plan with the new EU bioeconomy strategy is that it will link to the vision for agriculture that I mentioned, but it's also going to, I think, link to a number of other important EU policies that are emerging, and that includes things like the competitiveness compass, the clean industrial deal, the life science strategy, the Biotech Act, among others. Then at the national level, so the new programme for government states an intention to grow the bioeconomy, and we're pursuing that now, very much in line with the actions that are outlined in the Bioeconomy Action Plan that's in place at the moment. But there are also a range of other national policies that also incorporate the development of the bioeconomy. So things like the National Planning Framework and others, they all point to the need to develop a bioeconomy and bring greater value and efficiency in how we use the available biomass. So that's the policy background, very strong policy support at national and EU level for developing the bioeconomy. Then alongside that has been, of course, investment in the bioeconomy, and our department has committed over 40 million euro in research in the bioeconomy. Others, of course, are also in this space, Research Ireland and others, and that has led to the development of some important research centres, such as Bioorbic, but also many individual research projects which have developed the science needed to advance a bioeconomy. We've also been investing in pilot scale demonstration activities, and I'll speak about that a little bit more in a minute. And a lot of activity has also taken place around establishing clusters and networks, increasing the expertise that's available and increasing the engagement and bringing together many diverse actors that are needed to develop a bioeconomy. But what we really need, and we've been saying this for a little while now, is really more demonstration initiatives, more scaled up, practical, real world bioeconomy demonstration initiatives, or indeed biorefineries that take the outputs of all that research that has been funded over the last decade, to take that research from the lab and bring it to a demonstration level, to a real world level, and get all of the actors involved that we need to grow the bioeconomy. So with that in mind, we have secured the 20 million from the Just Transition Fund. So 10 million was committed in a first call that we ran last year. 2 projects were funded from that. You now see the second call that we're talking about today. And we also had a bioeconomy demonstration call under the Shared Island Initiative. So when you take all of that together, it comes to an investment of about 30 million euro in establishing specific pilot scale bioeconomy demonstration initiatives. And we believe that when we have these up and running, they will really act as a stimulant for growing the bioeconomy and bringing it from the lab to a real world setting. So the call was announced in June, but of course we had a pre-call announcement back in April. So you'll be all quite familiar, I think, with the detail of the call at this stage. Hopefully you are anyway. The plan here is to allocate 10 million in funding for 2 projects, so 2 projects worth up to 5 million euro each. And without saying any more, because I'm only going to repeat what Patrick is going to say, I'm going to hand over to Bernie, Bernie Rowe next, and Bernie is going to just say a few words on where this initiative fits in the overall JTF program. So Bernie, over to you.
Thanks a million, Carol. So, as Carol referenced, I'm here to represent EMRA, which is the Eastern and Midlands Regional Assembly. And we're the managing authority for the EU Just Transition Fund, which just basically means we're responsible for the development and the rollout of the whole EU JTF programme. And just to start with a sincere thank you to our delivery partner, DAFM, and indeed the brains behind this call, Patrick and Carl, whose expertise and energy have really brought the whole bioeconomy action in the EU JTF programme to life. And we're genuinely proud to be associated with such an initiative. So thanks for all of the effort you've invested in getting us this far today and getting the second call launched. I know it hasn't always been easy. So just to give a little bit of context to where the fund fits into the mix, and I suppose what the EU JTF sets out to achieve. It's a brand new fund for the EU funding programming period 2021 to 2027. And it comes with a budget of 169 million in total, half of which comes from the EU, and then the other half comes through the Irish Exchequer, through the Irish government. And the designated territory that was determined takes in the Midland counties, 4 Midland counties plus Roscommon, and then some municipal districts across Galway, Tipperary and Kildare. And I suppose, just in summary, we've 3 core priorities in the EU JTF programme, and there's 3 actions under each of the priorities. So we like to affectionately refer to it as jobs, bogs and wheels. So the jobs piece is our priority 1, and it's where today's webinar is focused on, is under one of our key priorities. And it's simply put, it's around diversifying the economy in this territory to stimulate job creation. I suppose that's effectively the first priority. The bogs element of the programme is focused on restoring the peatlands themselves and regenerating industrial heritage assets. So that's priority 1 and priority 2. And then lastly, we have what we refer to as wheels, and it's priority 3. And that's about developing sustainable mobility options. So that's the jobs, bogs and wheels bit. But it's no surprise, I suppose, priority 1, under which the bioeconomy action fits, is our core primary priority, I suppose. And the goal for this action and the focus of all of our efforts is really to explore new, innovative ways, find opportunities for within the just transition territory whereby we can stimulate job creation and look at diversifying the local economy. Because obviously the emphasis of the Just Transition Fund is in relation to the move away from peat extraction for electricity production. So we're looking at new ways then of being able to create jobs and diversify the economy in the Midland territory. So the call that's live at the moment that you're hearing all about today, and hopefully you're wild keen in engaging with and getting involved in, is really emblematic of the goals of the EU JTF and captures really well what the programme is setting out to achieve. So I'll hand back to Carol now to give you all the, I suppose, the science bit between himself and Patrick, and hopefully again from today, some useful insights into how you might get involved. If there's any questions, queries in relation to EMRA, or indeed in general in relation to fund, even outside of the bioeconomy action, more than happy if people want to make contact after the session, and we can link you into some information if that's useful. Okay, thanks a million.
Great, thank you, Bernie, and I also just want to acknowledge the cooperation from IMRA in getting us to this point. It's been a very constructive and positive collaboration, I must say, and we've learned a lot along the way, from the first call to the second call that we're looking at today now. You're right to point out that Patrick and his colleague Matthew Halpin are the brains behind all of this. They're the guys that have put all the work into coming up with the call. These are very complex calls to develop, not just to write the technical spec, but also to make sure that we're running a call that is in line with EU regulations, state aid regulations, and the rules of the JTF. So we've a lot to consider when we're designing the call, and that is not straightforward. But anyway, we've gotten to a point where we have the call published now. So just to say to the attendees as well, the session is being recorded, and we will put the recording up on the department's YouTube after the event, so people can watch it back if you like. Right, I'm going to hand over now to Patrick, and Patrick will take us through the details of the call. So Patrick, over to you.
Thanks very much, Carl. So good morning, everybody. Just briefly to build on the background provided by both Carl and Bernie, our main outlook on developing the bioeconomy, and particularly in the Just Transition Fund territory, which is a territory that's been designated by the government to include the counties and the municipal districts as set out, is that the bioeconomy has considerable untapped potential, both to support climate action, the development of a circular economy, and really to develop a sustainable food system, because the full value of biomass that's available within the region is not fully realised or unlocked, and there's far more potential to be achieved. And this can be significant potential can be achieved by sustainably cascading the use of biomass and valorising biological waste. And by cascading, we mean that biomass can be used to produce multiple products, not only food and feed ingredients, but also bio-based chemicals, materials, nutrients, etc., and can be something that can also run alongside the development of bioenergy systems. But to get to that point, we need to address some very significant challenges. So we need to move science from, as was mentioned earlier, from the research lab to a scaled up basis in demonstration facilities, either in open innovation facilities or in first of a kind pre-commercial developments. We also need to develop the value chain. So we need to connect the producers of biomass with the processors, and also with off-takers who would consider taking the bio-based materials, chemicals, food and feed ingredients, and turning them into products. In that, we also need to address financial risk and the development of the technical capacity and the innovative capacity to put together these value chains. So what we really need to do is scale up a lot of good practices, uptake of technologies, the development of associated engineering, and develop the basis for the cooperative approaches to align biological resources with biorefineries, with bio-based products, in line with a waste system which allows for the recycling, upcycling, and reuse of bio-based materials into a loop as far as is feasible, with an ultimate aim to look at zero waste and zero pollution. So a huge opportunity to be availed of, but quite significant matters to be addressed. So the purpose of the call overall is really to advance from the bioeconomy we have in Ireland to a competitive bioeconomy that looks at this new opportunities for a sustainable future. So matching up to climate action, rural and regional development, and providing prosperous opportunities for the people in the Just Transition Fund territory. We want the territory to become an exemplar region, highlighting these demonstration activities, showing the bioeconomy in action on the ground. And this will involve developing the close collaboration between stakeholders that is somewhat unrealised already across the entire bio-based value chain. We have a number of objectives, but I'll just speak to the three high-level objectives at the moment. What we really wish to do with our funded projects is really to accelerate the innovation process and the development of bio-based innovative solutions, be that products or services. What we also would like to see is that the potential for maybe to move already developed bio-based products to accelerate their market deployment as they are existing and mature, and maybe just need that extra innovation push to reach the market. But one of the most important elements that we would wish to achieve with our funded projects is to ensure that this development of innovative bio-based products is aligned with a high level of environmental and climate performance of the whole industrial system, moving through from the primary value chain through to the industrial processing, through to the product or service that's produced, and ultimately leading to having environment and climate credentials on the market. To guide applicants through achieving some of these overall objectives, we have some guiding principles that we would seek that are achieved and outlined within project proposals. This is underpinned by ensuring that in line with the National Policy Statement on the Bioeconomy and the Bioeconomy Action Plan, that principles around sustainability, as would be measured by life cycle analysis, the cascading use principle, the precautionary principle that would ensure innovations that are coming to the market consider roundly the influence on the environment, health, people, etc. Also the food first principle, ensuring that any development of bio-based products considers matters of around food security, but also in line with the Just Transition Fund, ensuring that the area-based local and regional development is considered. So really that you bring in the local value chain around networking, clustering, cooperation and partnerships. And the way we ensure this is played out within the proposals is that we seek that the actual facility or equipment delivery that's on offer within the project is delivered on the ground within the EU JTF territory. We also wish to ensure more scientific elements like research integrity, open science, ethics, inclusiveness, fairness, equality and diversity, and equality and human rights are delivered in line with many scientific programs and the Just Transition Fund itself. And also we will measure the projects, and we'll go into this maybe in a little bit deeper information shortly around. We would look to ensure that there's scientific excellence delivered in the proposals. This means that they're normally linked with a research basis and pulling that knowledge forward from the research basis into the innovation or demonstration, that the quality or the management of the project is in line with at least the equivalent of a research style proposal. But then to ensure that really the highest thing we want to measure is the impact on the ground, we give a higher scoring to this, and we look for at least a minimum level of marks between a number of the elements that we'll go into in a minute. So at the moment, where you can go to find the information is on the gov.ie website under the Department of Agriculture. You can find all the call information and documents there. The details of this information session and this webinar will be published there. And there's two particular documents I want to point you towards. One is the call specification document, and the other one is the guideline for applicants. The call specification sets out in more detail the call topics and the background details. And the guideline for applicants will really help you work your way through the online system where you submit your application to apply to participate in this fund. So now I'd just like to go on to a little bit more about the call scope and specific requirements. So overall, we are looking to fund projects which will be focused on the production and application of bio-based materials, including bio-based chemicals, materials, food and field ingredients, and soil nutrients. Broadly speaking, we're looking to fund technologies that are interrelated with the development of biorefining and biorefineries, and these will be focused on processing of biomass into an array of value-added bio-based products. The feedstock that's to be supplied into such systems and for the application of such technologies should respect local ecological limits and consider biodiversity matters and come from short supply chains as much as possible. The activities that do not meet the agreed requirements of climate and environmental performance will not be supported, and this will be something that would be assessed in the expert evaluation. And the project should demonstrate the potential of the bio-based solutions in terms of climate and environmental performance and circularity. So it's really important to measure up to this type of performance. We do also want the proposals to really accelerate the innovation process. So it's really important that people set out at the start where you are on the technology readiness level with the consideration within your proposal. And then you outline very clearly the development that's required, matters maybe that's necessary to further move the material or the product or the service towards deployment on the marketplace, and consider how you could best work with local actors, use of local resources, and leveraging the benefits of that type of scope and scale of cooperation and industrial engagement. It's often been said that the waste of one industry is the starting material for another. So this is the type of industrial symbiosis that could be considered. So we really want you to capitalize on scientific and technological developments. The department can make available to you a spreadsheet on all the funded projects that there is nationally on the bioeconomy in Ireland, as much as we can gather them up together in partnership with all the different funding groups across Ireland, so you can have very good knowledge of what's going on. And we really want to see you focusing in on contributing to the local and territorial economy of the Just Transition Fund territory. More specifically, and this is probably something that we want you to consider, is the demonstration initiatives really want to be something that shows the bioeconomy in action, concrete and demonstrated examples, ones that can be visited by policymakers, politicians, public and private investors, and local communities who will really understand what bio-based innovation and solutions mean for them on the ground. In this, it's seen as invaluable to develop cooperation approaches to align, for example, bioresources are interrelated with our natural capital. They should respect that capital and should ensure that nature and biodiversity are not harmed in any way. They should align with the development of primary production systems, offering increased added value opportunities for people working in agriculture or forestry, for example, and they should look to develop circular bioeconomy value chains based on consideration of these foundational steps around considering nature, considering biodiversity, and considering the important role of primary producers. And they should look to develop cooperative value chains and business models as appropriate to mobilize and valorize primary and secondary bioresources, resulting in this creation of new bio-based products, and with consideration of how this contribute to economic and employment opportunities, as Bernie has set out, whilst also, again, coming back to that very important fact of protecting and enhancing the environment and climate, as is one of the key focuses of the Just Transition Fund. So specific requirements overall for you to consider is where you're getting your feedstock from and the sustainability requirements that's associated with this sourcing. We want you to undertake an ex-ante assessment of the potential environmental issues and the environmental performance, and see if there's any mitigating or factors that need to be considered. We also need analysis as funded projects progress around ex-post assessment of this sustainability using tools such as LCA and LCSA. We want projects to enable bioprocessing, biomanufacturing, and if applicable, integrate digital technologies and avail of the advances that these can bring to different processes. We want to see projects, if applicable, to lead to the development of bio-based products, bio-based chemicals and materials, and to advance their market deployment and uptake. As we said before, develop these value chain and business model outlooks that can establish routes for economic viability, including developing appropriate levels of business model and planning for the TRL level of the project that you're proposing to undertake. Also, we want to see this development of multi-actor and operational group approaches, as would be set out under EIP Agri under the CAP strategic plan approach for Ireland and EU member states. The importance of this is that the bioeconomy is moving beyond normal value chain approaches and can consider multiple feedstocks, multiple types of technologies, and multiple products and outlooks. And the combination of this is an under-realized opportunity. And again, another key opportunity is to really, if you have a funded project, to really target your communication and your dissemination to really help and aid in the developing awareness and understanding of the bioeconomy and how you should engage with actors. So really going into the nuts and bolts now of the call, we wish to outline that the scheme or the initiative that's been that has been launched since June 12th has an indicative budget of 10 million. The call has one funding instrument. It's an innovation action. So it's set at TRL levels 6, 7, and 8, and I'll show you a visual of that in a minute. Again, coming back to one of our key points, we want to see the scaling up and demonstration of technologies, moving towards the first of a kind product facilities. So projects, as Carol has outlined, may have a value up to 5 million euros. The key element for us, and this is coming from stakeholder feedback, is that we need to invest in both operational activities, investment in people to run this type of equipment, with capital expenditure. And this is the under-realized opportunity, in that there is a lacuna in capital expenditure around the bioeconomy, and this is what we're hoping to fill in with this type of opportunity. So we're looking at projects not only rely on the public element of funding, but we're trying to see, can we source in, using the public funding, additional private sector funding to boost the uptake of innovation and market deployment. So whilst the public purse might come in at a value up to 5 million, the opportunity arises for the private sector or for other sector stakeholders to provide investment that goes alongside this. We would look that projects would run for a period which is no longer than 4 years, and sooner than that if possible. We would look to see a high percentage of funding to be spent by 2026, considering maybe initial planning or relevant permissions that might be required, but that due to the fact that the projects would have a concentration on capital investments, which should remain in situ post the project duration, due to this point that we're raising about attracting in partners, providing either provision of strategic direction, cash, in-kind contributions, relation investments, associated investments, etc., or the undertaking of relevant additional activities, that this would add up to a significant development over time that will remain in place and embed the bioeconomy in the place where the development and the funding is bedded into in the territory. When I say to you we wanted to focus on innovation actions at TRL 6 to 7, what we were really saying here was we weren't proposing that the work in the project would take place at what we would call the research and innovation level, but it would really be focused at this prospect of scaling up and demonstrating the technology in use for the benefit of the commercial sector, moving towards the potential for the development of the first of a kind product facility, integrating the types of technologies that are an advancement than what is currently in place in the private sector. And this is as a bid to move from TRL 6 to 7 to 8, with 9 being fully commercial, realizable activities and not reliant on public funding, but fully able to capitalize on the market for ongoing investment and day-to-day spend. So this is where we're really focusing, and we're more than willing to talk to any stakeholders about working within this space. So just going into a further bit of detail, the online application system is by a provider, by Smart Simple. They are working in partnership with DAFM, and the platform, the links to it have been provided in the various communications to date. So this is a very important starting point for people to get to know and navigate their way around the system, and to work with this using the guideline for applicants. What we want to point out is that the funding rate is a very important element to be considered. So the funding rate is aligned with the block exemption regulation, the state aid rules that are applicable all across Europe. They're related to research and innovation, and they're particularly relevant to industrial research and experimental development. And the aid intensity is subject to these state aid rules. So this is something we would like to speak to in detail with stakeholders. But as a rule of thumb, normally, for example, research performing organizations, universities, technological universities can be funded to a rate of 100%. Other actors then, depending on the specific role they play in the project, can be funded at an aid intensity somewhere between 50 to 80%. But we really need to discuss with you in detail your role within the project, and to work with you, and it's in the application form, to work with you to fill in the state aid part of the application form to determine the aid intensity that's applicable to your role within the project. As I said to you before, projects need to score an overall minimum of 60% to be to move through from a preliminary assessment to an expert evaluation. To be considered then for funding, they need to have this overall score of 60%, with particular underpinning elements around excellence and implementation. They need to have a minimum score of 60 in each area. And then there was an important scoring factor for the other award criteria area around impact, where the score that's achieved will be bumped up by a value of 1.5 to assure that the impact on the ground is the one that counts very significantly within the achievement of the overall score. I won't go into the full details of industrial research and experimental development and what they may mean, but generally the industrial research aligns with TRL 6 to 7, whereas the experimental development aligns with TRL 8. So it's much more closer to commerciality, and we need to speak to you about that along the lines of where the work you propose to undertake, which area of these two it falls under, and this has an impact on the aid intensity that you can achieve. As I said, we would be referring to the particular funding rates that are set out in the general block exemption regulation, and the key point to note is that this regulation has been updated on a number of times, so we need to make sure that you're following the latest amendment, and that you note that the aid intensities for industrial research and experimental development may be increased up to a maximum aid intensity of 80% of the eligible costs, in accordance with a number of points where we need to go into the detail with you on this. And this is something that's very important. One of the key ideas for us in examining aid intensity with prospective projects is try to optimize the funding aid intensity opportunity for all stakeholders in compliance with the rules. So who can apply? As I said before, we are seeking that projects are co-led by 2 out of 3 types of organizations: local authorities, SMEs, and research performing organizations, including technological universities and universities, including, for example, research performing organizations like Teagasc and the Marine Institute. And why do we do this? Because SMEs are going to be the driver of the bioeconomy, but SMEs need assurance and help in taking a reach back into innovation. It's invaluable for them, for example, to work with research performing organizations or RPOs, because of the knowledge that these organizations can bring through their expertise and their people, but also because they bring additional supports around finance and admin that can be very influential and important in guiding and aiding the implementation of projects or of proposals of these sizes. Local authorities also play a very, very important role in that they can provide leadership in the development of the bioeconomy within their local authority area, particularly around areas like economic development, climate action planning, and planning itself, amongst other matters. So as we say, projects, it is important that projects are led by 2 out of 3 of these organizations. So this normally means, we found in our experience, that groups really have to extend their contact lists to reach out to these type of partners. The optimum would be 3 out of the 3 being included in some shape or form in projects. Proposals can also support the active funded involvement of a range of local actors who are important for developing a competitive bio-based innovation and skills ecosystem. These can include technological infrastructures that are placed within the Just Transition Fund territory, pilot lines, testing facilities, innovation hubs, test beds, key enabling technology centres, demonstration sites or living labs. These are really important because these can allow the opportunity to develop equipment or practices on the ground within the territorial area. And these can involve entities such as clusters or non-governmental organisations, local and regional authorities, education and training boards, or community and local action groups. Proposals can also support the active funded involvement of large industry as well as SMEs. So this can really play a large role in aiding the scale up of projects. Projects can also involve cooperation with bio-based industry partners, including primary producers, the processing industries, as I mentioned, and very importantly, development of value chain with bio-based material, product off-takers and consumer brands. So this can be B2B and B2C activities. It is important that participation by all applicants is subject to respecting compliance with the National IP Protocol as well, and that's ensuring that any IP that's produced within the project is appropriately assigned within partners, and that they come to a consortium agreement to deal with this matter in an appropriate manner. So just in terms of the depths of the detail then, we have under the call proposal that is seeking to optimise and integrate industrial bio-based systems into the Just Transition Fund territory, we have broken out the opportunity into the funding opportunity into 4 different topics, and we hope these are attractive to various different interested parties. The first one is to developing of biochar products to promote its use in agriculture and in industry. The next one is the development of innovative bio-based food and feed ingredients. The third topic is the development of bio-based materials for the construction sector. And the fourth one is the development of bio-based value chains for the valorization of sustainable crops. So just to bring you through the details of the biochar opportunity, again, it's an innovation action. The topic has a prospective budget of 5 million, with the NTRL aiming to be at 6 to 7 to 8. With our view, it being as high as possible would be a significant development. So what's needed in this system is the development of value chains, business models, and aligned with technologies which can transform biomass, as we said before, local biomass, into biochar products that hold significant potential to reduce emissions by locking in carbon. The unresolved matter is that there's really a lack of knowledge on precisely how biochar products impact the environment, in particular its use in soils or for use in feed, anaerobic digestion, or in other sectors such as, for example, the built environment or the infrastructure network. So it's expected within the projects that they would undertake agricultural, environmental, or industrial studies to ensure technologies and biochar products are rolled out responsibly and at scale, with the development of guidance for policymakers for the development of a supporting regulatory framework, which includes the carbon regulatory and carbon farming framework. It could influence climate action planning and also, provide guidance for commercial operators as how to deploy biochar with opportunities that interlink with market considerations. So really, we want to see the deployment and scaling up of technology and development of a competitive replicable, territorial, local, circular and inclusive bio-based business model for biochar. In the innovative bio-based food and feed ingredients topics, we know that there's opportunities for the upcycling of food waste, but there's also opportunities around the development of proteins, fibers and carbohydrates, and to develop and validate this opportunity at pilot scale, providing breakthrough innovations in food and feed ingredients, which play an important role in both human and animal health. And it's important to consider both in tandem. Unlocking this opportunity, underpinned by the need for healthier and more sustainable foods, makes the market for food and feed ingredients extremely promising for high-tech bio-based applications. So really, in the outcomes, we're seeking to develop these ingredients from sustainably sourced bio-based feedstock. The innovation can be applied to breakthrough processes for known food feed ingredients, byproducts, etc., or for novel food and feed ingredients. And ingredients in scope include bioactive compounds, antioxidants, prebiotics, postbiotics, vitamins, peptides, and a whole range of other bio-based chemicals and materials, amongst others. So there's a really significant scope here to develop highly innovative opportunities. For the bio-based materials for the construction sector, we know that increasingly the potential of bio-based materials and products to provide more sustainable and circular solutions for the built environment, and at the same time confer useful functional properties, is an under-realized opportunity. So the opportunity here is to develop this potential, considering scalability, environmental scalability, and to clearly demonstrate opportunities with reference to conventional building materials. So the development of bio-based products for the construction sector with tailored functional properties for either the construction or renovation of buildings is what's expected as part of the outcomes. The products in scope are functional elements, but can include engineered products, insulation panels, facade elements, and a whole range of other types of products, but it's not limited to this. And examples of targeted functionalities could include examining of durability, fire retardancy, water barrier, etc. And really this is to match up to regulatory considerations as well as commercial properties that really could give advantage to the bio-based product or compared to the conventional building materials. So a real opportunity here, again, coming back to that similar type of budget, similar type of innovation action, similar type of TRL level as has been mentioned previously. And finally, the fourth of the opportunities is around developing and deploying climate positive crop feedstock compatible with the objectives of biodiversity protection to achieve the values and traits desired for biorefining. This is considered highly important for strategic autonomy all across the EU, but also is considered important for industrial competitiveness. Ireland invests quite a lot into its tillage sector to support it, even for not only standard cereal crops, but also for protein crops. So these are key feedstock for not only food and feed ingredients, but also for bio-based chemicals and materials. And considering the food first principle could enable the enhancement of these bio-based value chains and the creation of new ones. So a very significant opportunity for matters to be considered around cultivation of crops, providing environmental gains with enhanced ecosystem services at local scale, aligned with the opportunity around innovative biorefinery processes to convert materials from the targeted crops into not only food and feed ingredients, but also bio-based chemicals and materials with necessary safe and sustainable characteristics. So the demonstration in this case should consider matters related to optimization of the extraction and treatment conversion of materials into bio-based intermediates, potentially bio-based products, considering how to optimize yields and consider selectivity around crops as well as considering resource efficiency. So quite a significant opportunity, and one we really would like to see the tillage sector and the crop sector have a very, very close look at. First time really Ireland has been investing in this type of development. So really, just to come to it, as well as the deep details we've just provided for each of the significant or specific topic areas, we would really like for all the proposals that we receive, that proposals will facilitate the development, demonstration and deployment of industrial bio-based systems based on primary and secondary agriculture or forest-based biomass, and consider food and biomass processing. So really need to consider bioeconomy development in this context, and really go back to considering the development of these value chain links between the primary production chain and the market off-takers, as well as the processors, with this environment, climate and health performance as we have been outlining. Again, coming back to that initial infograph around zero waste and zero pollution. So very happy to discuss with stakeholders proposals they're putting forward and how they may match up to these characteristics. Again, just to re-emphasize and to paint the picture for you, we really want to see that input of biomass from the territory coming with the environmental and climate characteristics, the consideration of different technologies to really put the cascade process into practice, to develop either intermediate products for further processing, going from raw materials to biorefining to end products, with the reuse of materials and the return of materials to the soil to support enhance carbon and through nutrient applications, and really to bring this all into practice, and to develop the value chains, and to work with the key infrastructures, and to create the cooperation opportunities that this looks to develop. So the call process, and I'm coming kind of close to the end of my part of the presentation. Proposals received will be assessed in a three-step process. There will be a preliminary assessment by DAFM. So really, what's very important for you when you're making your submission is to make sure to get through this step that your proposal really has strict adherence to section 7G of the call specification. Once the call is approved through this preliminary assessment by the DAFM staff, we then move the proposals forward to the expert evaluation stage. Projects will be categorized into thematic areas, and panels consisting of relevant experts from overseas academia, industry and the public service in Ireland will combine together to evaluate the proposals initially by themselves and then in a consensus grouping. They will provide overall scores on the proposals, and these proposals then will be put forward as a grouping to a review and a selection panel, which is a group formed from high-ranking officials from departments and agencies who assess the list of recommended projects based on the preliminary assessment and, most importantly, the expert evaluation, and provide oversight on making the final selection for putting forward proposals for funding to the Minister of Agriculture, Food and Marine, who has the overall say in signing off on the funding opportunities. So key information for you for making your application. First of all, please take note of the closing date for submission. No submissions can be received after this date and time of the 8th of August at 12 noon. Applications must be submitted using DAFM's online research application form through Smart Simple. Grant applications will only be accepted from eligible applicants, and as I said, incomplete or late applications cannot be submitted. Applicants can update and save their proposal as many times as required before the submission date. So please start early and work often on your application, because working your way through the application form will help you uncover questions that you need to put forward to us, but you can't work on this after the deadline has expired, please make sure that you save your application regularly. So all submitted applications, and this is very important, must be signed off online by, first of all, the project coordinator and the principal investigator, if these are separate people. For research performing organizations, the vice president or of research, or the head of research and the technology transfer office or equivalent in the RPO must sign off. For other eligible applicants that are outside of the RPOs, local authorities, SMEs, large industry, other value chain actors, you must have this signed off by an appropriate person, equivalent of the VP of research in your own organization. So that's someone high up within your organization that can sign off on the financials. We also encourage that the finance offices from the research performing organizations join as collaborators, because they provide really invaluable input and feedback and support to development of applications. So please refer to the two documents I referenced earlier, the call specification and the call guidelines, to support you in preparing a proposal. So these are the key dates. Obviously, we've opened the call on the 12th of June. We have our info webinar today. We are open for technical queries until the 1st of August, myself, my colleague Matthew Halpin. We have a submission deadline as is set out, and we have dates there for evaluation around the results of the call or the commencement of the projects. These are indicative, maybe subject to change, but we provide them with you today because they tend to be some of the questions that are asked. So this leads me back to the Q&A, and I might hand you back to Carl. And thanks for your time and patience there, particularly for the short stop due to the losing the sound. So thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. A tour de force there of all of the technical detail of the call. So thanks for taking us through that, and you can take a breather now for a minute before we get into the questions. So feel free now to enter your questions into the tab there on the platform, and a few have come in already. So we'll start working our way through these now, and we'll spend about maybe 20 minutes or so on this. And Patrick and Bernie, as a reminder, if there's any questions that we can't answer today, Matthew, who's on the call here, will take a note of those, and we'll answer those in the follow-up FAQ document, because some probably will be things that we haven't thought about, and we need to make sure that we take the time to come up with the correct answer to those questions. So let's kick off then, and I have a question here, and it has come in a few times around eligibility, and basically the question is, can entities outside the territory, the designated territory, so can entities outside that territory in Ireland, or indeed entities internationally, be involved? And if so, how? Or if they are involved, would it make the application ineligible? So I don't know which of you want to take that. Patrick, do you want to go first, or Bernie?
Yeah, I can go first there, Carl, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
So the key matter is that the projects can involve partners that are outside the territory, both nationally and internationally. The preference is that it's largely an Irish consortium, but if the case can be made that there's specific expertise that can be brought in, that's something that the expert evaluators can consider. Largely, we want the applications to be availing of Irish expertise as much as possible. The key component to consider, that's sort of in terms of operational expertise, the key component is that the capital investment that the projects undertake are something that is delivered on the ground within the EU Just Transition Fund territory. So there needs to be a particular site where particular pieces of equipment that investments are made in that are placed on the ground within the territory.
Okay, that's fine. I think that's clear. Now, this is a question that maybe we need to reflect on, but I'll put it to you. So, can a proposal carry elements of several topics, or does it have to be assigned to one individual topic? So that has come in a couple of times because somebody points out here that a project on developing value chains from agri-food biomass could fall under at least 2 or 3 of the topics. And related to that, is there any preference or weighting given to any of the topics over other topics?
So maybe it's easier to start with the second question compared to the first question. So there's no preference. The topics are of equal weight and will be equally considered. Applicants will have to select a primary topic area, and by selecting a primary topic area, they have to answer the asks within that topic area. However, if they feel within the funding allocation that they can go above and beyond that and pick up on other elements within other topics, well then they can do so. But they, again, coming back to the main point, they have to pick a primary topic, they have to address what's in that topic, and they have then it's their choice whether they pick up other elements as they see fit. So it's not an a la carte. It's not that you can pick elements from each of the 4 topics or a number of the topics and design your own call topics, so to speak.
Okay. Now, a simple enough question is, how can technical queries be submitted? So the way to submit your questions is by sending in an email to research@agriculture.gov.ie, and we can receive and deal with technical queries up until the 1st of August. That's the deadline for receiving queries, and that's all laid out in the call spec document. So it's research@agriculture.gov.ie. Is there a process where applications can get a pre-screening to determine eligibility? So again, that will be something that you should submit. If you have a question on that, submit it to the research@agriculture.gov.ie, and we'll get back to you. So a question here, can an SME project partner be paid a rental fee for use of existing equipment as opposed to a capital grant for new equipment? And if so, what funding rate for a rental fee is likely to apply? A very specific question. That might be one that we have to get back, unless you know it off the top of your head, Patrick, but it's quite specific.
Yeah, it's quite specific, Carl, and we'd have to go and look at the call guidelines specifically on that matter. So if what we will do is we will have this question, we will take this question and address it in our frequently asked questions, which will be published on Friday.
Okay, that's fine. So some questions aren't that obvious to or that clear to understand. So okay, a question here. Somebody is making a biofertilizer from dehydrated food waste, animal manure, and sheep wool. They're an SME with limited funds and labour to scale the project. Would they fit into this application? So it's developing a biofertilizer.
There isn't a specific
No.
call topic
No.
For this. If you remember back, we have our biochar topic, we have our high value food and feed ingredients, we have our sustainable crops, and we have our
Construction.
bio-based construction materials.
Construction,
Yeah, the reason we haven't included bio-based fertilizers as a topic area is because this is something that has been considered as an opportunity under the previous Just Transition Fund call and another call under Shared Island. So we are calling out specific bio-based demonstration opportunities because this is where we wish to see exemplar development in to show what's possible. So no is the answer unfortunately in the case of this call.
That's okay. A question then is how can people get their hands on the list of research projects that you mentioned, Patrick? Should they send an email in?
What we will do, Carl, is we will place this on our website. It's an Excel sheet that contains all the funded projects across a whole range of organizations and research funders, which we've gathered up in recent months. It's non-exhaustive, but it's one of the most comprehensive lists there is available. We will place this on the website alongside the frequently asked questions document by Friday this week.
Okay, this might be for Bernie. I hope I'm interpreting it correctly. So, a representative of an SME has asked a question. So they have said that their local council has said, as local authorities don't have a direct remit when it comes to private applications to the EU JTF, can you please advise in relation to what role our local authority should take or should have? That's.
I suppose, Carol, I'd like to unpick that one a little further, I suppose, with the person. We have a lot of engagement with local authorities across the fund because they're key stakeholders in a number of actions under a number of priorities. So there's lots of ways the local authorities can get involved and offer support, even within the SME sector linking in. But I'm not quite sure what role they want the local authority to have with them in relation to this particular call, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not clear.
Yeah, I think that one needs to be explained a bit further. So if the person asking the question wants to send it in by email, we can try and answer it.
Sure, for sure. And we have a lot of contacts across.
I come in there on this one as well.
Yeah.
So there are very good examples within the Just Transition Fund region of local authorities that have played leadership roles in the development of the bioeconomy. So what they've done is that they've considered the bioeconomy as an opportunity for their county or their district in terms of addressing climate action as an opportunity for local economic development. And they have played a specific role within projects in, for example, supporting the development of facilities, the utilization of particular pieces of land, and this role can be invaluable in giving confidence to stakeholders, both research organizations and SMEs, to embed themselves within specific counties, because there can be some, for example, challenges with developing of the facilities around planning, or there can be some need for the local authority to play a role in aligning various different actors of the bio-based value chains. And this leadership role that the local authority can play is something that's called out within climate action planning, and it's an underdeveloped opportunity, and this is where the proposals are seeking to align various actors, SMEs, RPOs, local authorities, etc., for the benefit of economic and environment and climate performance. And we have seen good examples in, for example, counties like Tipperary and beyond the Just Transition Fund territory in Monaghan and Donegal, who are playing very active roles in this area.
Okay. Can an organisation such as an SME or an NGO participate in more than one application?
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
What they need to consider, though, is expert evaluators will be reviewing applications, and they will be considering the capacity and the capability of organizations to participate in projects. So if it came down to a number of proposals being put forward for funding, and there was a couple of rivals, one of the determining factors could be, is an organization spreading themselves too thin? Do they have the capacity and the capability to service a number of proposals? So I think there's a careful balance to be found there, and I think this type of capacity and capability would need to be clearly explained within proposals. For example, it could be different people that would be leading for the same organization within different proposals. So it's possible, but just tread carefully, I suppose.
Okay.
And explain your case.
Okay. Although biofertilizer is not in scope, would biochar-based manure or digestate that have emission reduction potential or nutrient loss mitigation potential be in scope?
So the point is that if you are producing for example, if you were into biochar, putting an application into the biochar proposal, and you were producing biochar, but as a secondary activity and to meet up with the zero waste, zero pollution opportunity, as we described as a key objective, a bio-based fertilizer was a secondary product, well then this would be in scope. But you must achieve the primary product that's sought, be it a biochar or a high value food and feed ingredient, or a bio-based construction material, or a material, a bio-based chemical material emanating from a sustainably produced crop. If as a secondary product, there's a bio-based fertilizer helps you progress towards zero waste or zero pollution, then this is in scope, but not as a primary product.
Yeah. So for the co-fund element, for other actors involved in a proposal, does that have to be met by cash or in kind?
Well, first of all types of bio-based value chain actors, and as we set out, RPOs, SMEs, local authorities, groups that are in the local bio-based value chain innovation and knowledge ecosystem, all can be funded. But the aid intensity rate is a key matter for consideration. We do have an objective to try and secure in aligned funding, and this can be provided through numerous types of opportunities. It could be in-kind contribution, time of staff, materials, etc. It could be associated investments. It could be cash. So what we're really trying to see is that the public funding going into this, which can be up to a maximum achieving value for money of 5 million, what potential has it to also download other associated types of income or investments, in-kind contributions, cash, etc. And remember that this is something that will be examined under the scoring criteria. So, but we realise in some cases this is not realisable. It can't be achieved due to just the very nature of the area that we're trying to develop. Whereas in some areas it may be highly appropriate and highly opportune, depending on the actors who are involved. So it's a case-by-case basis, and you should make your case why you can or why you can't achieve this within your application.
Okay. Then, as an SME looking at the production of building materials, is there a list of possible joint participants? So I think, well, one place to go and have a look will be that list of projects that that we're going to make available, because you probably need a research partner to come in with you. So hopefully on that list of projects that we make available, there'll be a few in this area, and you can follow up then with those. Anything else, Patrick, on that?
I think that would be the starting point. I think the main thing is to receive the question, and we can come back with the answers. Just for everyone to kind of understand that if you do ask a question to us, we will reproduce it in the frequently asked questions, so that there's just a high level of transparency around what questions we've replied to and answered, and that it's open and available for everybody.
Okay, my last question then, and we'll wrap things up then after that. Should proposals be subject to planning permission, or must approval or approval in principle be secured first?
It's not a requirement. It obviously is preferable that that there is a work undertaken around planning permission, and that risks are mitigated as much as can be with this. We have had proposals that have sought planning permission after funding, so it doesn't rule anybody out if they don't have it in advance, but they really should be scoping it out and availing of the opportunities within the planning process to have as full an outline of their likely success, and this could be something that could be advised in the application form about where they are with the process.
Yeah.
There are clear risks if it's not in place, so this needs to be really clearly considered.
Okay, Patrick and Bernie, I think we'll conclude at that. People have been on for an hour and a half now, so I think that's probably long enough. So we'll take all the questions we've received, and we'll put them in an FAQ document and release them with their answers by the end of the week. As I said, you can submit your questions up until the 1st of August. And good luck to you all. There's 6 weeks left in the call application window, but of course this has been out since the pre-call announcement in April. So hopefully you've all made your connections at this stage, and you have some fairly well developed proposals in mind, and you've started your applications on the portal. So thank you all for tuning into this. I want to really thank Patrick and Matthew and Bernie for attending today, and for putting all of the work into developing the call. As I said at the beginning, it's quite a complex call for us to develop and to run, but we're looking forward to seeing some excellent proposals. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day, and goodbye.